Okay, so like imagine this, right? You're trying to decide which stocks to buy, but instead of like spending hours poring over reports and news articles, you have an AI analyst in your pocket, basically telling you what's hot and what's not.
Yeah, that's kind of the dream, right?
Right.
And it's not as far-fetched as it sounds. Researchers have actually been testing this out, using these powerful AI systems to try to predict, uh, you know, which stocks are going to go up.
So is this like AI trying to take over Wall Street or what?
Well, it's definitely shaking things up. There's this study that was just presented at a big AI and finance conference, and they used one of those large language models, like the GPT ones you hear about, to see if it could actually beat human analysts at this whole stock picking game.
So how do they even how do you even teach an AI to pick stocks?
Right, because analysts look at tons of stuff, right?
Yep.
It's not just about the numbers. There's like news and market sentiment and all sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you feed all that to an AI?
Well, that's what's so cool about this study. They tested a bunch of different ways to do it. Like sometimes they just gave the AI basic stock price history. And other times they added in like summaries of news articles about the company. Or even super detailed financial data from their official reports.
So it's kind of like giving the AI different levels of information to work with.
Exactly. And what's crazy is that even when the AI only had that basic historical data, it still did a better job of predicting stock performance than the real-world analysts.
Wait, are you serious? So you're telling me that an AI, even without all the fancy stuff that analysts use, could actually be better at picking stocks?
That's what this research is suggesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it gets even wilder. When you give the AI more to work with, like the models that had access to those detailed financial reports, those really important fundamentals of a company, those consistently perform the best.
So it's not just about like hype or what's trending on Twitter. It's about actually understanding a company's, financial health,
Right.
their balance sheet, all that stuff.
Exactly. It seems like the AI was learning to think like a really experienced analyst,
Hmm.
focusing on the things that actually matter for long-term growth.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about like all the news that's constantly coming out? Surely that has an impact on stock prices, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the study found that AI was really good at using news to predict short-term movements, like whether a stock would go up or down over the next month or so.
Okay, so it's good at spotting those quick trends.
Yeah, but for those longer-term predictions,
Yeah.
the fundamentals were still king.
So it's almost like AI could be that friend who's always like, oh, hey, this stock is going to pop tomorrow. But then you still need to talk to like your financial advisor about your actual long-term strategy.
That's a great analogy. It's like you need both, right? The quick insights and the long-term wisdom.
Exactly.
And another interesting thing they found was that just giving the AI the sentiment of the news, like whether it was positive or negative, wasn't as effective as giving it the full summaries of the news articles.
Hmm. So it's not just about like, oh, this is good news, this is bad news.
Right. It seems like those details really matter, even for AI.
That's kind of reassuring, actually. It means it's not just blindly following the hype.
Exactly. It's actually trying to understand the information.
Yeah, like a human analyst would.
And the researchers found that a lot of times, the AI's ratings were really similar to the sentiment of the news, which suggests it's picking up on those same narratives and trends that influence how investors behave.
Okay, so AI seems to be pretty good at this whole stock picking thing. But let's be real, no study is perfect, right?
Well-
What were some of the limitations here?
Well, one thing was that they couldn't perfectly match up the AI's predictions with the exact timeframes that the human analysts were working with.
So it's like we're not totally sure if the analysts were giving their ratings for the next 3 months or 6 months, or somewhere in between.
Right, so it makes it a little tricky to say for sure who's winning this stock picking contest.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm guessing the AI didn't have access to all the little things the analysts consider.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the CEO's personality or like
Yeah.
the overall market vibe.
They really focused on the stuff that you can measure, the hard numbers and the news.
So it's almost like the AI was playing with one hand tied behind its back. Imagine what it could do with even more information.
Exactly, and that's what's so exciting about this research. It's like a glimpse into the future of AI and finance. But we're really just scratching the surface here.
Yeah, I mean, what if they used like an even more powerful AI or gave it access to social media chatter
Right.
or even those like super niche data sources that most people haven't even thought of yet?
It's mind-blowing to think about. And think about what that could mean for everyday investors. Like imagine having an AI tool that could sift through all that data
Mm.
and alert you to potential opportunities or risks
Yeah.
that you would never have seen coming.
It would be like having a secret weapon. Or maybe a superpowered research assistant.
Exactly.
But okay, let's like step back for a second. This is just one study, right? And AI is still pretty new in the world of finance. So what does this all actually mean for someone who's like, trying to make some money in the market?
That's the million-dollar question, right? I think what's really interesting here is that this research shows us that AI is becoming a serious player in finance. It's not just a sci-fi fantasy anymore.
So you're saying like, we're not all going to be replaced by robots tomorrow,
Probably not tomorrow.
but AI could be a powerful tool to help us make smarter decisions.
That's what I think is most likely, at least for the foreseeable future. AI might not replace human analysts completely, but it can definitely enhance what they do and make them even more effective.
It's like that whole work smarter, not harder idea applied to investing.
Exactly.
Like AI can handle all the grunt work, the data analysis, the trend spotting, and then that frees up humans to do what they do best, like strategy and critical thinking and building relationships with clients.
I really like that analogy. And in finance, that human element is still so crucial. Investors need to understand the why behind the numbers, the context, the potential risks.
Yeah.
AI can help provide that information more efficiently.
But ultimately,
The decisions still come down to humans.
so it's about finding that sweet spot, using AI to inform our choices, but not just blindly following its recommendations.
Exactly.
We still need that human touch, that gut feeling, and a good financial advisor to help make sense of it all.
I couldn't agree more. And that's where financial advisors can really show their value by helping investors interpret what the AI is saying, explaining the nuances, and giving personalized advice based on their clients' goals and risk tolerance.
Yeah, it becomes like a true partnership between human expertise and AI's data crunching power.
Exactly.
That's pretty exciting to think about. So it's not about AI taking our jobs, it's about AI making us better at our jobs.
I think that's a great way to look at it. It's a very optimistic perspective, and probably the most realistic one. We're at the beginning of a really exciting era in finance, and AI is going to be a major part of it.
Okay, so this is all super promising for the future of AI in finance. But for our listeners who are maybe a little more cautious, what are some of the potential downsides? Like, is there anything to be concerned about here?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that AI is only as good as the data it's trained on. So if that data is flawed or biased in some way, the AI's recommendations could be unreliable.
So it's like that old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
You can't expect an AI to make brilliant predictions if you're feeding it junk information.
And another potential issue is complexity. These AI models can be really hard to understand, even for the experts who build them.
Right.
So how do we make sure that investors can actually trust the AI's advice? How do we know it's not just making lucky guesses?
That's a really good point. I think transparency is key here. Like, if I can understand why an AI is recommending a certain stock, maybe even see the data it's using, I'd feel a lot more confident about following its lead.
Absolutely. Transparency and explainability are crucial for building trust in AI, especially when it comes to our money.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there's the whole regulatory landscape.
Mm-hmm.
As AI becomes more common in finance, regulators are going to have to figure out how to oversee its use, how to protect investors from potential harm. There are a lot of big questions we're still trying to answer.
That's a whole other deep dive waiting to happen. It shows how complex this topic really is. It's not just about the tech itself, but the ethical and social implications as well. But hey, maybe that's where humans still have the advantage.
Maybe?
We can actually grapple with those messy ethical dilemmas.
Absolutely. We need experts who can bridge that gap
Right.
between the technical world of AI and the real-world needs of investors. People who can make sure that AI is being used responsibly and for the benefit of everyone.
So it's not just about building the most powerful AI, it's about using it wisely and ethically. And
Yeah.
that's a conversation we need to keep having as AI continues to evolve.
I completely agree. And it's a conversation I think our listeners will be a part of in the years to come.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. The exciting potential of AI, some challenges we need to watch out for, and the importance of humans and AI working together. But before we wrap up, I want to throw one last question your way. What if, instead of trying to pick the winners, AI could help us avoid the losers?
Ooh, that's an interesting twist. Playing defense instead of offense.
Exactly. What if AI could analyze companies and flag the ones that are like more likely to have shady accounting practices
Yeah.
or bad management or just make dumb business decisions?
That's fascinating. This kind of risk assessment AI could be huge, especially for everyday investors who don't have the time or resources to do that kind of deep research themselves.
It'd be like having an AI watchdog, sniffing out trouble before you even
Yeah, I
invest.
love that analogy. And it raises a really important question. How much would you trust AI to be your financial watchdog? Would you be comfortable making decisions based on its risk assessment?
Hmm, that's a tough one. I think it would depend on how transparent the AI is. Like, if I could understand why it's flagging a company as risky, I might be more willing to trust its judgment. But it definitely makes you think about the level of trust we're putting in these systems.
You've hit the nail on the head. Transparency and explainability are going to be essential for building trust in AI, especially when it comes to something as important as our finances.
So maybe the real future of AI in finance isn't about replacing human judgment altogether, but about giving us the tools and insights we need to make smarter, more informed decisions.
I think that's a fantastic way to put it. AI can empower us as investors, help us navigate this complex world of finance with more confidence.
That's a perfect note to end on. We've explored some groundbreaking research, talked about the potential benefits and challenges of AI in finance, and even thought about some pretty big questions about trust, transparency, and the future of investing.
It's been a great conversation. I hope our listeners are leaving today feeling energized and maybe even inspired to learn more about the role AI will play in their financial lives.
A huge thank you to our expert for guiding us through this fascinating topic.
My pleasure. It's been a thought-provoking discussion,
Yeah.
and I'm really excited to see what the future holds for AI in finance.
Until next time, keep those minds curious, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.
Yeah, and another thing to remember is all that stuff analysts look at that's really hard to quantify, like, a CEO's personality or the overall market vibe. The AI didn't have access to any of that.
So it's kind of working with limited information.
Yeah, they really focused on the measurable stuff, the hard numbers and the news.
It's almost like the AI was playing the stock picking game, but with one hand tied behind its back.
That's a good way to put it.
Imagine what it could do if it had access to even more data.
Right, and that's what's so exciting about this whole field. We're just scratching the surface of what AI can do in finance.
What if they could somehow feed it, like social media chatter or something?
Right, or even those super niche data sources that most people haven't even thought of yet.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is. And think about what it could mean for the average investor.
Yeah.
Imagine having an AI tool that could analyze all that data and then be like, hey, this is a potential opportunity you might want to look into.
Yeah.
Or, hey, this company seems a bit risky.
It would be like having a secret weapon. Or maybe like a superpowered research assistant.
I like that.
But, okay, let's be realistic for a second. This is just one study. And AI is still pretty new to the world of finance.
It is, yeah.
So what does all this actually mean for someone who's actually trying to make money in the market?
Right, that's the big question.
It's should we all be rushing out to buy AI-powered stock picking apps?
I think what's really important here is that this research shows us that AI is becoming a serious force in finance.
So it's not just a gimmick.
It's not just hype, it's a real technology. That has the potential to change how we invest.
Okay, but should we be worried? Are human analysts all going to be out of a job?
Probably not anytime soon.
Yeah.
But I do think AI will change the role of the analyst.
How so?
Well, instead of spending all their time crunching numbers, they could focus more on things like strategy and building relationships with clients.
So it's like that whole work smarter, not harder thing.
Exactly.
The AI can handle the grunt work.
Right. And then the humans can focus on the stuff that AI can't do.
Like the human touch you were talking about.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, investing is still about people.
Right.
It's about understanding their goals, their risk tolerance, their hopes and dreams for the future.
And that's something that AI can't really replicate.
At least not yet.
So it sounds like
Well,
the future of finance is really about finding the right balance between AI and human expertise.
I think that's a great way to put it.
It's not about AI taking over. It's about AI helping us do our jobs better.
And I think that's a very optimistic perspective
Yeah.
and probably the most realistic one.
Yeah, I like that.
We're on the verge of some really big changes in finance.
Yeah.
And AI is going to be a key part of that.
Okay, so this is all super exciting. But I also know that some of our listeners might be a little hesitant about all this AI stuff.
Yeah.
What are some of the potential downsides we should be aware of?
One of the biggest things is that AI systems are only as good as the data they're trained on.
So if the data is biased or flawed,
Then the AI's recommendations could be unreliable.
so it's like that old saying, Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
You can't expect an AI to be a genius stock picker if you're feeding it junk.
And another potential issue is complexity. These AI systems can be incredibly complex,
Huh.
even for the people who build them.
Right, like they're kind of a black box.
Exactly.
So how can we make sure that investors can actually trust the AI's advice?
That's a great question, and I think transparency is key.
So being able to see how the AI is actually making its decisions.
Right, and being able to understand
Mm.
why it's recommending a certain stock or why it's flagging a certain company as risky
So it's not just about trusting the AI blindly, it's about being able to look under the hood.
and see how it works.
Which brings up another big issue, regulation.
Right.
As AI becomes more common in finance, how are regulators going to make sure it's being used responsibly?
That's a huge question, and one that we're still figuring out as a society,
Yeah, that's a whole other deep dive we could do.
for sure.
But it highlights how complex this topic really is. It's not just about the technology, it's about the ethics, the social implications, and the role of government.
And maybe that's where humans still have the advantage.
Yeah.
We're able to grapple with those big questions
Yeah.
in a way that AI can't.
So it sounds like we need people who can bridge that gap between the technical world of AI and the real world needs of investors.
Absolutely. We need experts who can make sure that AI is being used ethically and responsibly,
Yeah.
and that it's actually benefiting people.
So it's not just about building the most powerful AI, it's about using it in a way that makes the world a better place.
I think that's a great way to put it.
So even though there are some potential downsides to AI in finance, it sounds like there are also a lot of reasons to be optimistic.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a powerful tool that has the potential to make us all smarter investors.
And if we use it wisely, it could really help democratize finance and give everyone access to the same level of information and insights.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the potential benefits of AI, some of the challenges, and the importance of finding that sweet spot between human expertise and AI's data crunching power. But before we wrap up, I want to throw out one last thought experiment. What if, instead of trying to pick the winners, AI could help us avoid the losers?
That's interesting.
Like, what if it could analyze companies and flag the ones that have a higher risk of,
Right.
say, shady accounting practices or bad management?
So instead of trying to predict which stocks are going to go up,
Yeah,
we're trying to identify the ones that are most likely to tank.
exactly.
I like that. It would be like having an AI watchdog sniffing out trouble before you even invest.
That's a great analogy.
And it kind of raises a whole new set of questions like, how much would you trust in AI to tell you which companies to avoid? That's a tough one. It would definitely depend on a lot of factors, like how transparent the AI is
Yeah.
and how it's actually making its decisions.
Right, because you don't want to just blindly follow its advice.
Exactly.
But if you could understand the reasoning behind its recommendations, maybe then you'd be more likely to trust it.
I think that's key. Transparency and explainability are going to be crucial for building trust in any kind of AI system, especially one that's handling our money.
So maybe the real future of AI in finance isn't about replacing human judgment altogether, but about giving us better tools and insights to help us make smarter decisions.
I think that's a great way to summarize it.
AI can empower us as investors
Help us navigate this incredibly complex world.
with more confidence and hopefully more success.
I agree. It's true, though. Like we were saying earlier, AI is still pretty new in finance, and there are definitely some things to be cautious about.
Yeah, like what are some things listeners should keep in mind?
Well, like one big one is that AI systems are only as good as the data they're trained on.
Right, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. So if the data is biased or incomplete or just plain wrong, then the AI's recommendations could be totally off base.
So you're saying we can't just blindly trust any AI that claims to be a stock-picking guru?
Right. We need to be critical and ask questions like, where's this AI getting its data from? Who built it and what are their motivations?
That makes sense. And I guess another concern is that these AI systems can be super complex.
Oh yeah, even for the experts who design them, it can be hard to understand exactly how they're making decisions.
So it's like they're kind of a black box.
In a way, yeah, and that can make it hard to trust them because how do you know if the AI is actually making smart decisions
Yeah.
or if it's just getting lucky?
Right, like is it based on solid analysis or just random chance?
Exactly, and that's why I think transparency is so important.
So being able to see how the AI is working under the hood.
Right, like if I can see the data it's using and the logic behind its recommendations,
Mm.
then I'm more likely to trust it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess this also raises questions about regulation.
Oh, absolutely. As AI becomes more common in finance words, regulators are going to have to figure out how to oversee it, how to protect investors from potential harm.
It's like a whole new frontier for them.
It really is, and there are so many questions we're still trying to answer as a society.
Like, what are the ethical implications of using AI to make financial decisions?
Right. And how do we balance innovation with consumer protection?
It's a lot to think about, but maybe that's where humans still have the edge.
You mean because we can think critically about these issues?
Yeah, like we can grapple with those big ethical questions in a way that AI can't.
I think that's a really important point. We need people who can bridge the gap between the technical world of AI and the real world of finance. People who can make sure that AI is being used for good.
So it's not just about building the most powerful AI, it's about using it wisely and ethically.
Exactly, and that's a conversation we all need to be part of.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. We've explored some really fascinating research today, talked about the incredible potential of AI in finance, but also some of the challenges and risks we need to be aware of.
It's been a great discussion.
And I think the big takeaway here is that the future of finance is not about AI versus humans. It's about AI and humans working together.
I couldn't agree more.
So to all our listeners out there, keep those minds curious and stay informed about the evolving world of AI in finance, because it's going to be a wild ride.
It definitely is. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And a huge thank you to our expert for sharing their insights with us. Until next time, keep exploring, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.